Zara 7 sat alone in the corner of the massive cafeteria aboard the Nexus station, her mechanical left arm resting on the metal table, while her organic right hand picked at the nutrition paste she barely needed to consume. The station buzzed with thousands of beings from across the galaxy, yet a perfect circle of empty space surrounded her table. No one ever came close. The cybernetic implants covering half her face glowed softly with blue light, processing data streams from the station's network. Her left eye had been replaced with a sophisticated optical sensor that could see across multiple spectrums, while her organic brown eye watched the crowd with quiet resignation. The biomechanical enhancements that saved her life 10 years ago had also made her an outcast. Captain Vex of the Altarian High Command walked past with his officers, their crystalline skin reflecting the station's lights. When one of his subordinates began to veer toward Zara's table, Vex quickly steered him away. "Don't stare at the abomination," he whispered, loud enough for Zara's enhanced hearing to catch every word. "The mixing of flesh and machine is unnatural. It corrupts the spirit." A group of Zelthran traders nearby chittered in agreement, their insectoid bodies clicking as they communicated. "The sacred balance is broken in her," one said. "She is neither living nor machine, but something wrong between." Zara's mechanical fingers tapped against the table in a rhythm that betrayed her frustration. She had heard it all before. The galaxy's major species had clear philosophical boundaries about cybernetic enhancement. The spiritual Altarians believed machines corrupted the soul. The logical Kithri thought biological components made technology impure. The proud Zelthrans viewed cyborgs as failures who couldn't achieve perfection in either form. Only the humans were different, but humans were barely a footnote in galactic civilization. They had just achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago, and were still considered a primitive species by most standards. The few human ships that docked at Nexus Station were usually ignored or looked down upon. Dr. Korath, the Kithri scientist who had performed Zara's cybernetic surgery, approached the table. His chrome-plated body moved with perfect mechanical precision, every step calculated. "Subject Zara 7, he said in his emotionless voice. "Your integration levels remain stable. The human medical techniques we incorporated continue to function within acceptable parameters." Zara looked up at him with her mismatched eyes. "You mean the parts that kept me alive when your perfect Kithri medicine failed?" Korath's optical sensors flickered. "The human approach to cybernetics is crude but effective. They lack our precision, but show unusual adaptability in biological mechanical integration. However, this does not change the fact that you remain an anomaly." "An anomaly that you created," Zara replied quietly. "The explosion on Research Station Beta required immediate intervention. Human medical data suggested their approach to cybernetic integration. The alternative was your death." Korath paused, his processors whirring. "I have often wondered if I made the correct choice." The word stung, even though Zara had heard similar sentiments countless times. She was the result of a desperate experiment, combining human, Kithri, and Altarian medical techniques to save her life after a catastrophic accident. The result was unprecedented success in terms of survival, but social failure on every level. A commotion near the docking bay entrance caught everyone's attention. A small group of humans had entered the cafeteria, their varied skin tones and simple clothing marking them clearly as the newest species to join galactic society. Most beings turned to stare at them with a mixture of curiosity and condescension. The humans seemed unbothered by the attention. They moved through the crowd with easy confidence, their leader a tall man with dark skin and kind eyes scanning the room. Unlike every other species on the station, they didn't seem to be looking for others of their kind to sit with. Zara watched as the human leader's gaze swept across the cafeteria and landed on her isolated table. She expected him to look away quickly like everyone else did. Instead, his eyes lingered, taking in her cybernetic enhancements without the usual revulsion or pity she was accustomed to seeing. To her complete shock, the human began walking directly toward her table. Conversations throughout the cafeteria began to quiet as beings noticed the human's trajectory. Captain Vex stopped mid-sentence with his officers. The Zelthran traders paused their clicking. Even Dr. Korath's optical sensors focused on the approaching human. Zara's cybernetic systems began running faster, her enhanced eye analyzing the human's biometrics. No signs of fear, disgust, or pity, His heart rate was steady, his expression open and genuinely friendly. Her social interaction protocols dormant for months, suddenly activated as she tried to process this unprecedented situation. The human stopped beside her table and smiled. "Mind if we sit? Everywhere else seems pretty crowded." His voice was warm and carried a slight accent she couldn't identify. Zara's vocal processors nearly malfunctioned. "You want to sit here with me?" "Unless you'd prefer to eat alone," the human said, gesturing to his companions. "I'm Marcus, by the way. These are my crewmates from the cargo ship Terra's Hope." She stared at him, her organic eye blinking while her cybernetic one continued scanning. "Don't you know what I am?" Marcus tilted his head slightly. "You're someone eating lunch, same as us. Also, those cybernetic modifications are incredible engineering. Mind if I ask who did the work? The integration looks flawless." For the first time in years, Zara felt something other than resignation or anger. The emotion was so foreign she had to run a diagnostic to identify it. "Hope. Dr. Korath performed the surgery," she said carefully, "but he used human medical techniques. Most people find the combination disturbing." "Most people haven't seen what we've seen," Marcus replied, settling into the chair across from her. His crewmates followed suit, treating the situation as perfectly normal. "On Earth, we've got folks with all kinds of modifications. Medical, military, personal choice. What matters isn't what you're made of, but who you are." The cafeteria had fallen almost completely silent now. Beings throughout the space watched in fascination as humans casually shared a table with the station's most avoided resident. Zara's mechanical hand trembled slightly against the table. "You're not afraid of me?" Marcus laughed, a sound so genuine and warm that several nearby aliens turned to stare. "Afraid? Why would we be afraid? You're just a person who's been through something difficult and came out stronger. Where we come from, that makes you someone worth knowing." The conversation at Zara's table became the most discussed event on Nexus Station within hours. Security feeds showed beings throughout the cafeteria recording the interaction, sharing it across their respective networks with commentary ranging from bewilderment to outright disgust. Captain Vex filed an official complaint with Station Command. "The humans are encouraging dangerous behavior," he stated during his recorded message. "Their acceptance of the abomination could lead to more such corruptions. We must intervene before their primitive thinking spreads." Meanwhile, in the modest quarters assigned to the Terra's Hope crew, Marcus sat with his team reviewing their mission parameters. Their ship carried medical supplies and agricultural equipment bound for the Outer Rim colonies, but they had been delayed at Nexus Station for 3 days due to bureaucratic complications that seemed designed to frustrate human traders. "You know they're all talking about lunch yesterday," said Elena, the ship's engineer. Her dark hair was tied back practically, and her hands showed the calluses of someone who worked with machinery daily. "The station's communication networks are buzzing with theories about why we sat with Zara." Dr. Sarah Chen, their medical officer, looked up from her datapad. "I've been researching her case. The cybernetic integration is remarkable. Most species require extensive preparation and matching for even simple implants. Her modifications should have been rejected by her immune system within weeks. But they weren't," Marcus said, leaning back in his chair. "That human medical data Dr. Korath mentioned must have made the difference." "It's more than that," Sarah continued, pulling up holographic displays of Zara's scans. "I managed to access her medical files through professional channels. The integration isn't just successful, it's adaptive. Her cybernetic components are learning from her biological systems and vice versa. She's becoming something genuinely new." Tom, their pilot, shook his head. "No wonder everyone's scared of her. She represents change, and most of these species seem to hate change." Elena snorted. "Most of these species hate us too. We're too unpredictable, too willing to try new things. They'd prefer if we just stayed in our little corner of the galaxy and didn't bother anyone." A chime from the door interrupted their discussion. Marcus opened it to find Zara standing in the corridor, looking uncertain. She had changed from her cafeteria clothes into a simple jumpsuit that better accommodated her cybernetic arm, and her optical implant was dimmed to a soft glow. "I'm sorry to bother you," she said quickly. "I wanted to thank you for yesterday. It's been a long time since anyone treated me like a person." "You don't need to thank us for basic decency," Marcus replied, stepping aside to let her enter. "But you're welcome to join us. We were just discussing the fascinating engineering in your modifications. Zara's organic eye widened. Fascinating? Most people call them horrifying. Dr. Chen stood up, her professional curiosity evident. Would you mind if I asked about the integration process? From a medical standpoint, what you've achieved should be impossible according to current galactic medicine. Dr. Korath said the same thing, Zara replied, settling into an offered chair. The accident destroyed most of my left side. Standard Kithri cybernetics would have required removing all the damaged biological tissue, but that would have killed me. The human medical data suggested a different approach. Integration rather than replacement, Sarah murmured. We've been developing similar techniques on Earth. The idea is to work with the body's natural healing processes rather than against them, Zara nodded. The first few months were difficult. My immune system kept trying to reject the implants, but Dr. Korath used human immunosuppression techniques that gradually taught my body to accept them. Now they feel like they've always been part of me. Elena leaned forward, studying Zara's mechanical arm. That's incredible engineering. Mind if I take a look at the joint articulation? For the next hour, the humans peppered Zara with questions about her modifications, her experiences, and her life on the station. Unlike the clinical examinations she was used to, their interest felt genuine and respectful. They asked about her work as a data analyst, her hobbies, her thoughts on galactic politics. It's strange, Zara said eventually. I've been on this station for 3 years, and I know more about human culture after one conversation than I do about any other species after daily interaction. That's because we actually want to know about you, Tom replied. Most species here seem to have already decided what you are before they meet you. A sharp knock on the door interrupted them. Marcus opened it to find Captain Vex flanked by 2 Altarian security officers, their crystalline bodies gleaming with authority. Captain Sterling, Vex said formally. I must insist that you cease this inappropriate association with the cybernetic creature. Your behavior is causing unrest among the station's legitimate residents. Marcus stepped fully into the doorway, blocking Vex's view of the interior. I'm sorry, but I don't understand. We're having a conversation with a fellow resident of this station. What exactly is inappropriate about that? The abomination should not be encouraged in social interaction, Vex replied stiffly. Your species, primitive understanding of technology and biology, makes you susceptible to her corrupting influence. From inside the room, Zara's voice carried clearly. I can hear you, Captain. I'm not a creature or an abomination. I'm a person who survived an accident. Vex's crystalline features hardened. You are a violation of natural law. The mixing of flesh and machine corrupts both. The human's acceptance of such wrongness proves their unfitness for civilized society. Elena appeared beside Marcus, her engineer's mind clearly processing the conversation. Interesting perspective from someone whose people use crystal implants for faster-than-light communication. How is that different from cybernetic enhancement? Crystal technology works in harmony with our spiritual essence, Vex replied coldly. We do not corrupt our bodies with crude machinery. Right, Elena said dryly. Because growing crystals inside your nervous system is totally natural. The tension in the corridor was rising. Station security protocols were designed to prevent conflicts between species, but the situation was unprecedented. Humans defending a cyborg against established galactic prejudices fell outside normal parameters. Dr. Chen joined the group at the door. Captain Vex, I'm curious about your medical knowledge. Have you studied the integration techniques used in Zara's case? The biological compatibility achieved is actually quite remarkable from a scientific standpoint. I will not discuss the technical details of abomination, Vex replied. I am here to warn the humans against further association with the creature. There will be consequences if you continue to ignore proper social protocols. Marcus's expression remained calm, but his voice carried steel. Are you threatening us, Captain? I am informing you of social reality, Vex replied. The major powers of this galaxy have standards. Species that violate those standards find trade agreements more difficult to negotiate, docking permissions harder to obtain, diplomatic relations more strained. The threat was clear, even if diplomatically phrased. Associate with Zara, and humanity's already tenuous position in galactic society would become even more precarious. Zara appeared in the doorway behind the humans, her cybernetic eye glowing brighter with emotion. "They don't have to choose me over their future," she said quietly. "I understand the consequences." Marcus turned to look at her, then back at Captain Vex. His smile was sharp enough to cut crystal. "Captain, I think you misunderstand something fundamental about humans. We don't abandon our friends because it's inconvenient. In fact, threats just make us more stubborn." Elena's device was a modified communication amplifier designed to interface directly with the station's broadcast network. When combined with Zara's cybernetic capabilities, it could transmit not just voice and image, but actual data streams and sensory experiences to any compatible receiver. "The beautiful thing about galactic communication standards," Elena explained as she calibrated the device, "is that they're designed for maximum compatibility between species. Everyone can receive basic sensory data, even if they process it differently." Dr. Chen was reviewing the plan one more time. "Zara will broadcast her actual experiences during cybernetic integration, along with current sensory data showing how her biological and mechanical systems work together. It will be impossible to dismiss as mere propaganda. The conspiracy depends on people fearing the unknown," Marcus added. "Hard to maintain that fear when everyone can experience what cybernetic integration actually feels like." Zara held the interface device, her cybernetic hand trembling slightly. "What if this makes things worse? What if showing everyone my internal processes just confirms their fears?" Tom shook his head. "Then we'll be no worse off than we are now. At least we'll have tried something instead of just accepting defeat." The plan required precise timing. Station regulations allowed for emergency broadcasts to all residents, but only under specific circumstances. Fortunately, Elena had discovered that the systematic pressure campaign against the humans technically qualified as a security threat, requiring immediate disclosure. "Administrator Quilex isn't going to appreciate this," Marcus warned as they made their way to the station's central communication hub. "Administrator Quilex can file a complaint," Elena replied cheerfully, "after we expose his cooperation with the conspiracy." The communication hub was a massive chamber at Nexus Station's core, filled with transmission equipment serving thousands of ships and species. During normal operations, only authorized personnel were allowed access, but emergency protocols opened the space to anyone declaring a legitimate security concern. Korath met them at the hub entrance, his mechanical body carrying several data storage devices. "I have compiled additional evidence of the coordination between species leaders. Medical files, communication logs, resource allocation records. The conspiracy is extensive." Security guards at the hub entrance were confused by the unusual group requesting emergency broadcast access. A Kitheri scientist, a human crew, and a cyborg with official documentation of security threats was outside their normal protocols. "State the nature of your emergency," the lead guard demanded, his insectoid features clicking with irritation. Marcus stepped forward confidently. "Coordinated conspiracy by multiple species leaders to manipulate galactic trade and diplomatic relations through systematic pressure campaigns. We have documented evidence and are prepared to provide full disclosure to all station residents." The guard's translator struggled with Marcus's formal language, but the key words were clear enough. Conspiracy, manipulation, evidence, disclosure. Under station law, these claims required immediate investigation, and emergency broadcast access was mandatory pending that investigation. Within minutes, Zara found herself standing before transmission equipment capable of reaching every conscious being on Nexus Station. Thousands of ships, hundreds of thousands of individuals from dozens of species, all about to experience something unprecedented. "Remember," Dr. Chen said quietly, "just be yourself. Show them what you actually experience, not what they expect to see." Zara nodded, interfacing her cybernetic systems with Elena's modified amplifier. The device hummed to life, establishing connections with the station's entire communication network. Warning signals appeared on displays throughout Nexus Station as the emergency broadcast system activated. "Attention residents of Nexus Station," Zara began, her voice carrying clearly through every speaker, translator, and communication device on the massive structure. "My name is Zara 7. You know me as the cyborg that everyone avoids. Today I want to show you what I actually experience." She activated the sensory transmission protocols Elena had designed. Suddenly every being on the station could feel what Zara felt, the smooth integration between her biological nervous system and cybernetic processors. The way information flowed seamlessly between organic intuition and mechanical analysis, the complete absence of conflict between her human and artificial components. But more than the technical aspects, they experienced her emotions. The loneliness of years of isolation, the pain of being treated as an object rather than a person, the desperate hope that had bloomed when the humans showed her simple kindness. "For 3 years, I have lived among you," Zara continued, her words accompanied by streams of data showing her daily experiences. "I have worked to keep this station running efficiently. I have harmed no one, threatened no one, corrupted no one. Yet I have been treated as a dangerous anomaly because I represent something your leaders fear." The transmission shifted to display Korith's evidence. Communication logs showing coordination between species leaders. Resource allocation data proving systematic pressure against the humans. Financial records demonstrating how the conspiracy benefited participating species at human expense. "This conspiracy exists not because I am dangerous," Zara explained, "but because the friendship shown to me by humans proves that your rigid categories and social boundaries are unnecessary. They fear that if one species can accept me fully, others might question why they have been taught to reject me." Throughout the station, the reaction was immediate and intense. In the Altarian quarters, junior officers stared in shock at their commanders as communication logs showed Captain Vex's role in organizing the pressure campaign. Zelthron traders discovered their clan leaders had sacrificed profitable human trade relationships to maintain the conspiracy. The most powerful response came from the Kithari section. Korith's fellow scientists accessed Zara's integration data directly, their mechanical minds processing the incredible efficiency of her hybrid consciousness. What they discovered was revolutionary. The combination of biological creativity and mechanical precision was producing cognitive capabilities neither could achieve alone. "We have been told that mixing flesh and machine corrupts both," Zara said, sharing the sensation of her enhanced analytical abilities. "Experience my actual capabilities and judge for yourselves whether this is corruption or evolution." Dr. Chen had been right. Zara's consciousness was something genuinely new, bridging the gap between biological intuition and artificial intelligence in ways that transcended traditional categories. She wasn't a human with machine parts or a machine with human components. She was something entirely different and remarkably capable. The broadcast continued for 27 minutes, during which Zara shared not just her experiences but her hopes. Her dream of a galaxy where beings could be valued for their contributions rather than dismissed for their differences. Her vision of cooperation between species based on mutual respect rather than rigid hierarchies. As the transmission ended, silence fell across Nexus Station. Then slowly conversations began. Thousands of beings who had never questioned their prejudices found themselves reconsidering fundamental assumptions about consciousness, identity, and social organization. In the administrative sector, Administrator Quilex's communication systems were overwhelmed with inquiries from species leaders demanding explanations. The conspiracy that had operated in shadows was now exposed to scrutiny from every direction. Captain Vex found himself facing questions from his own officers about the legitimacy of his actions. The Zelthran clan leaders discovered their traders were furious about lost profits. Even the Kithari Council began investigating whether their participation in the conspiracy had compromised their scientific integrity. But the most significant change was in the way beings looked at Zara herself. As she and the humans left the communication hub, they encountered something unprecedented. Beings who nodded respectfully, who stepped aside with courtesy rather than fear, who looked at her with curiosity instead of revulsion. "Well," Marcus said as they walked through corridors that no longer felt hostile, "I think we can call that a successful presentation." Zara's optical implant flickered with what might have been the cybernetic equivalent of tears. "I never imagined it was possible. To be seen as a person instead of a problem." Elena grinned and patted Zara's mechanical shoulder.
"Welcome to the human approach to problem solving."
"When the system is wrong, change the system." But their victory celebration was premature. In the highest levels of the station's administrative complex, emergency meetings were already being convened. The exposed conspiracy was more than just prejudice against a cyborg. It was part of a larger power structure that would not surrender easily. The real fight was just beginning. 6 months later, the Kepler Belt Mining Consortium had become the most talked-about success story in the galaxy. What had started as a desperate attempt to prove the value of cooperation had evolved into a thriving operation that outperformed every traditional mining venture by massive margins. Zara stood on the observation deck of the consortium's command station, watching through her cybernetic eye as multi-species teams worked together in perfect harmony. Altarian spiritual focus guided delicate extraction operations through dangerous asteroid fields. Kithari automation handled the complex logistics of processing and transport. Zeltran trading networks had opened new markets for rare minerals that previous operations couldn't access efficiently. But the real breakthrough had come from combining their different approaches. Human adaptability had solved integration problems that had stymied engineers for generations. Zara's unique consciousness served as a bridge between biological intuition and mechanical precision, optimizing operations in ways that none of the species could achieve alone. Production efficiency is up 400% over comparable single-species operations, reported Kylix, the young Altarian engineer who had become the consortium's operations coordinator. The profit margins are unprecedented. Elena, now serving as the chief integration specialist, grinned as she reviewed the technical reports. Turns out that when you combine the best ideas from multiple species instead of competing with each other, amazing things happen. Who would have thought? The consortium's success had created ripple effects throughout galactic society. Other cooperative ventures were forming, despite continued pressure from the traditional power structures. Young beings from multiple species were requesting transfers to work with integrated teams. Even some established leaders were quietly investigating the possibility of adopting cooperative approaches. Dr. Chen had established a medical research division that was revolutionizing cybernetic medicine by combining techniques from multiple species. The integration protocols we developed with Zara are now helping beings across dozens of worlds, she reported during their weekly team meeting. We're not just treating injuries anymore. We're creating new forms of enhanced capability. But the most significant change was in how beings viewed consciousness itself. Zara's example had inspired others to explore hybrid approaches to intelligence and awareness. Biological minds enhanced with mechanical precision, artificial intelligences guided by organic intuition, and entirely new forms of consciousness that transcended traditional categories. Tom, now piloting supply runs for multiple cooperative ventures throughout the sector, brought news from across the galaxy. The resistance to change is breaking down faster than anyone expected. Turns out that once people see the benefits of cooperation, it's hard to convince them to go back to isolation. Marcus reviewed the political reports they had been receiving. The traditional galactic powers were struggling to maintain their authority as more and more species chose cooperation over hierarchy. Trade Council meetings had become contentious affairs as member species questioned the value of restrictive protocols. High Chancellor Zerion requested a meeting, Marcus announced. Official topic is negotiating acceptable parameters for interspecies collaboration. Unofficial translation is, please don't make us completely irrelevant. Zara's optical implant flickered with amusement. They want to negotiate the terms of their own obsolescence? More likely they want to find a way to control and limit cooperative ventures, Korath observed. His relationship with the consortium had evolved from scientific curiosity to genuine partnership, and his analytical capabilities had proven invaluable for optimizing complex operations. The meeting with Chancellor Zerion took place in the neutral conference facilities of Nexus Station, now renovated to accommodate the growing number of interspecies cooperative ventures. The crystalline being arrived with a full diplomatic entourage, clearly intending to project authority and importance. The Trade Council acknowledges the economic success of your experimental ventures, Zerion began formally, but we remain concerned about the long-term stability implications of unrestricted interspecies cooperation. Marcus kept his expression diplomatically neutral. What specific stability concerns do you have, Chancellor? The fundamental structures that maintain galactic order depend on predictable relationships between distinct species, Zarion replied. When those boundaries become blurred, traditional diplomacy becomes impossible. Zara stepped forward, her unique presence now commanding respect rather than fear. Chancellor, what you call traditional diplomacy has often meant perpetuating conflicts that cooperation could resolve. Are you saying galactic order requires maintaining unnecessary problems? Zarion's crystalline features shifted uncomfortably. The cyborg misunderstands the complexity of galactic governance. Some conflicts serve important functions in maintaining balance between competing interests. Manufactured scarcity and artificial competition, Elena interjected bluntly. You're admitting that your authority depends on keeping species from working together too effectively. The truth hung in the air like a challenge. The Trade Council's power structure was built on managing conflicts and controlling resources. Successful cooperation threatened to make their services unnecessary. Dr. Chen spoke more diplomatically. Chancellor, perhaps we should focus on the benefits that interspecies cooperation can provide for everyone, including traditional power structures. Our medical advances have helped beings from every major species. Enhanced efficiency benefits all participants, Korath added. Restricting cooperation reduces total galactic productivity and innovation. This is economically irrational. Zarion's entourage exchanged glances that suggested internal disagreements about how to handle the situation. Finally, the Chancellor spoke more carefully. The Trade Council is prepared to discuss formal protocols for approved interspecies cooperation, subject to appropriate oversight and safety measures. Meaning you want to control and limit cooperation to protect your own authority, Tom said with characteristic directness. Meaning we want to ensure that rapid changes don't destabilize the complex relationships that maintain galactic peace, Zarion corrected sharply. Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying the Chancellor carefully. I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding here. You're assuming we need your permission to cooperate. We don't. The consortium exists because it works, not because any authority approved it. Moreover, Zara added, the benefits of cooperation are becoming so obvious that restriction would require increasingly authoritarian measures. How long can you maintain control through force and economic manipulation when voluntary cooperation produces better results? The question struck at the heart of the matter. The traditional galactic powers were facing a choice between evolving with changing circumstances or becoming increasingly oppressive to maintain their control. Zarion's diplomatic composure cracked slightly. You underestimate the complexity of galactic civilization. Without central coordination, cooperation devolves into chaos. Has it? Elena asked pointedly. Because from where I sit, central coordination has produced stagnation, artificial conflicts, and systematic oppression of anyone who doesn't fit rigid categories. The chaos we're seeing is your system breaking down, not cooperation failing. Over the following hours, the discussion revealed the true scope of the transformation taking place. The success of cooperative ventures was forcing a reevaluation of fundamental assumptions about how galactic civilization should function. Species that had maintained suspicious distances for generations were discovering common interests. Economic systems based on scarcity and competition were being replaced by abundance and collaboration. Social hierarchies that seemed permanent were proving to be artificial constructs that could be changed. As the meeting concluded, Zarion made one final attempt to maintain the old order. The Trade Council will consider proposals for regulated interspecies cooperation within acceptable parameters. Zara stood, her cybernetic and biological components working in perfect harmony as she addressed the Chancellor with quiet confidence. Chancellor, you're welcome to regulate whatever you can control. But consciousness, creativity, and cooperation can't be contained by regulations. They grow wherever beings choose to embrace possibility over fear. Walking away from the conference, Marcus reflected on how much had changed since that first lunch in the station cafeteria. You know, when we sat down with you that day, I never imagined we were starting a galactic revolution. Zara's optical implant glowed warmly. You didn't start anything. You just treated a person like a person. Everything that followed came from that simple choice. Elena laughed. Leave it to humans to accidentally overthrow galactic civilization by being decent to people. We didn't overthrow anything, Dr. Chen corrected gently. We just proved that better was possible. The transformation is happening because beings choose it, not because we forced it. Tom grinned as he looked out at the bustling activity of Nexus Station, now filled with integrated teams and cooperative ventures. So what's next? We've pretty much proved that cooperation works better than isolation. Where do we go from here? Zara's unique Kunchi. The emergency session of the Galactic Trade Council convened in the highest security chamber aboard Nexus Station. Representatives from 12 major species sat around a circular table designed to accommodate their vastly different physiologies, while holographic projections allowed dozens more to participate remotely. High Chancellor Zarian of the Galactic Trade Consortium, a being whose species resembled crystalline spiders, called the session to order. The unauthorized broadcast has created unacceptable instability in established trade relationships. We must take immediate action to restore order. Captain Vex, looking considerably less confident than before, presented his report. The human crew violated multiple protocols by enabling the Cyborg's broadcast. Their actions have encouraged questioning of fundamental social structures that maintain galactic stability. The real problem, interjected Trade Director Zephys of the Zelthran Collective, is that the broadcast revealed information that was meant to remain confidential. Commercial negotiations require discretion. Public scrutiny interferes with necessary diplomatic flexibility. What they weren't saying directly, but what everyone understood, was that their carefully maintained system of controlling smaller species through economic pressure had been exposed. The conspiracy against the humans was just one example of how galactic powers maintained their dominance. Meanwhile, in the station's civilian quarters, a very different kind of meeting was taking place. Zara found herself surrounded by beings she had never spoken to before, all wanting to understand more about her experiences and the human perspective on social integration. A young Altarian engineer named Kylix approached her hesitantly. I analyzed the data you shared about biological-mechanical integration. The efficiency gains are remarkable. My people's crystal implants achieve similar results but require extensive spiritual preparation. Your method seems more adaptable. Dr. Chen, who had been monitoring the conversations around them, stepped closer. That's because human cybernetic philosophy focuses on working with natural biological processes rather than replacing them. We found that the body adapts better when you give it time to adjust gradually. A group of Kithari scientists had gathered around Elena's communication device, their mechanical bodies humming with computational activity. The engineering principles are fascinating, one of them stated. Human technology prioritizes flexibility over precision, which creates unexpected emergent properties when combined with biological systems. Elena nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. Most species try to make perfect technology that works the same way every time. Humans make good enough technology that learns and adapts. It's messier, but it's also more resilient. Tom was fielding questions from a mixed group of traders and ship crews who had been affected by the economic pressure campaign revealed in the broadcast. How did you know to resist? Asked a Zelthran cargo captain. Most species would have abandoned the cyborg rather than face trade sanctions. Because abandoning people when it's convenient isn't really friendship, Tom replied simply. If we only stand by our friends when it's easy, then we're not really friends at all. These conversations were happening throughout the station, as beings who had never questioned established social hierarchies found themselves discussing alternatives. The broadcast hadn't just revealed a conspiracy. It had demonstrated that different approaches to consciousness, technology, and social organization were possible. But the galactic powers were not idle. Within hours of the Emergency Trade Council session, new regulations began appearing in station communications. Enhanced security protocols that restricted access to communication systems. Trade safety measures that required additional oversight of human commercial activities. Cultural protection guidelines that discouraged excessive interaction between species. Zara discovered these developing restrictions while reviewing station network traffic in her data processing job. Her cybernetic eye processed the information flows, revealing patterns that troubled her deeply. They're not just trying to silence us, she told the humans when they met that evening. They're implementing systematic controls to prevent similar situations from developing elsewhere. Marcus studied the data Zara had compiled. New regulations requiring species-specific quarters on all trade stations. Restrictions on interspecies crew assignments. Economic penalties for cultural contamination. They're trying to build walls between every species in the galaxy. Dr. Chen frowned as she reviewed the medical aspects of the proposed regulations. Some of these restrictions would actually prevent the kind of medical cooperation that saved Zara's life. They're willing to let people die rather than risk cultural mixing. It's worse than that, Elena said, analyzing the technical specifications. These protocols would prevent exactly the kind of technological cooperation that drives galactic progress. They're choosing stagnation over innovation. The implications were staggering. The galactic powers weren't just defending their authority. They were actively working to prevent the emergence of new forms of consciousness, technology, and social organization that might challenge their control. That night, Zara interfaced with the station's deepest data networks, using her unique abilities to trace the full scope of what was being planned. What she discovered was chilling: a comprehensive system of social control that would effectively freeze galactic civilization in its current state, permanently. They're afraid, she realized, during an emergency meeting with the humans and Korath, not just of me but of change itself. The broadcast proved that their rigid categories aren't necessary, and that terrifies them more than any external threat. Korath's optical sensors flickered as he processed this analysis. Fear of change is illogical. Adaptation is essential for survival in a dynamic universe. Logic isn't driving this, Marcus replied grimly. Power is. They've built their authority on the idea that their way is the only way. Evidence of successful alternatives threatens everything they've worked to maintain. Elena was studying the proposed regulations more carefully. But here's the thing, they're overreaching. Some of these restrictions would hurt their own people. The Kithri scientists I talked to were fascinated by our integration techniques. Preventing that research would damage their own technological advancement. The Altarian engineers were excited about adapting our flexible technology approaches, Dr. Chen added. Blocking that collaboration would slow their infrastructure development. Tom grinned suddenly. And the Zelthran traders are already upset about losing profitable relationships with human merchants. More restrictions means more lost profits. Zara's cybernetic eye brightened as she processed their observations. They're counting on fear overriding self-interest. But what if we can show individual species that cooperation benefits them more than isolation? A counter-campaign, Marcus mused. Instead of fighting the restrictions directly, we demonstrate the value of what they're trying to prevent. More than that, Zara said, her unique consciousness already developing strategies that purely biological or mechanical minds might miss. We build actual examples of successful cooperation. Show results, not just theories. Korath's processors whirred with interest. A practical demonstration of alternative social organization. The scientific value would be considerable. Over the next few hours, they developed a plan that was audacious in its scope. Instead of simply defending against the galactic powers' restrictions, they would create a working example of what interspecies cooperation could achieve. A project that would benefit everyone involved and demonstrate the superiority of inclusive, rather than exclusive social structures. The asteroid mining operation in the Kepler belt, Elena said suddenly. It's been stalled for months because no single species has all the necessary capabilities. Dr. Chen nodded enthusiastically. The Altarians have the spiritual focus needed for precision work in dangerous environments. The Kithri have the mechanical engineering for automated systems. The Zelthrans have the trading networks for resource distribution. And humans have the flexible adaptation skills to coordinate everything, Tom added. Plus Zara's unique abilities to process complex integration challenges. Zara felt something she had never experienced before, the sensation of being not just included, but essential to a major undertaking. The galactic powers have spent so much energy maintaining separation that they've forgotten the advantages of combination. Marcus smiled with the satisfaction of a plan coming together.
Then let's remind them.
Time to show the galaxy what cooperation can actually accomplish. But as they began reaching out to potential collaborators, they discovered that the galactic powers had anticipated this possibility. The restrictions weren't just being proposed, they were already being implemented through informal pressure and economic manipulation. The fight for the future of galactic civilization was about to become much more complex. Within 12 hours of Captain Vex's warning, the consequences began. The Terra's Hope's cargo manifest was suddenly flagged for additional inspections. Their docking fees tripled overnight due to administrative complications. Two separate trade negotiations that had been progressing smoothly were abruptly canceled by their alien counterparts. Station Administrator Quilex, a massive slug-like being with multiple eye stalks, summoned Marcus to his office in the administrative sector. The office was designed to accommodate dozens of species, with various atmospheric controls and gravity adjustments, but the message was clear. Humans were small and new here. Captain Sterling, Quilex's translator, rendered his wet, bubbling speech into standard galactic. Your crew's behavior has created significant tension among our residents. Perhaps it would be wise to reconsider your associations. Marcus stood before the administrator's elevated platform, refusing to show any sign of intimidation. Administrator, we've done nothing but treat a fellow resident with basic respect. If that creates tension, perhaps the problem isn't with our behavior. The cyborg is a unique case, Quilex replied, his eye stalks swiveling to focus on Marcus. She exists in a gray area of galactic law and custom. Most species prefer to minimize contact rather than risk contamination or philosophical corruption. Contamination? Marcus's voice carried dangerous calm. You're talking about a person, not a disease. The distinction is not always clear, Quilex said. Your species is new to galactic civilization. You do not understand the careful balances that maintain peace between radically different peoples. Each species has core beliefs about the nature of life, consciousness, and technology. The cyborg challenges all of these beliefs simultaneously. Marcus processed this information carefully. So you're saying galactic peace depends on everyone agreeing to isolate someone who survived a terrible accident? I am saying galactic peace depends on respecting established boundaries and social contracts, Quilex corrected. Your friendship with the cyborg encourages others to question these boundaries. This questioning leads to instability. Meanwhile, in the station's data processing center, Zara worked alone as usual. Her job involved analyzing traffic patterns, resource allocation, and communication flows to optimize station operations. Her unique combination of biological intuition and cybernetic processing power made her exceptionally good at finding patterns others missed. Today, those same abilities were showing her something troubling in the station's economic data. Trade disputes were increasing, not just involving humans, but across multiple species relationships. Communication traffic was spiking with unusual diplomatic exchanges. Resource allocation was being adjusted to account for potential security concerns. Her cybernetic eye interfaced directly with the station's network, processing data streams too complex for purely biological minds to handle. What she found made her organic heart race. Dr. Korath entered the data center, his mechanical body moving with its usual precision. Subject Zara 7, your emotional readings are elevated. This is inefficient. Korath, Zara said without looking away from her displays. The humans are being systematically pressured to abandon their association with me. Trade sanctions, increased fees, diplomatic isolation. It's all connected. This was predictable, Korath replied. The human's behavior violates established social protocols. Natural consequences follow. Zara turned to face him, her cybernetic eye blazing with intensity. Natural? This is organized harassment designed to force compliance with prejudice. The data shows coordination between species that normally compete with each other. Explain, Korath said, his scientific curiosity overriding his social programming. Zara interfaced her cybernetic systems with the main display, showing Korath the patterns she had discovered. Look at the timing. Every action against the humans occurred within narrow time windows, suggesting advanced coordination. Communication spikes between normally hostile species just before each incident. Resource reallocation that benefits the participating species at human expense. Korath's optical sensors process the data. Your analysis suggests a conspiracy. My analysis proves a conspiracy, Zara corrected. They're not just pressuring the humans to abandon me. They're using me as a test case to establish precedent for controlling human behavior in galactic society. The implications hit both of them simultaneously. If the galactic powers could successfully force humans to abandon their principles through economic pressure, it would establish a pattern for future control. Humanity's independence and cultural autonomy would be permanently compromised. This information should be shared with Captain Sterling, Korath said after a long pause. Why do you care? Zara asked, You've made it clear you consider my existence a mistake, Korath's processor's word as he considered his response. My primary function is scientific advancement. The humans' approach to cybernetic integration represents significant scientific value. Their social behavior also provides valuable data on species interaction patterns. Allowing them to be manipulated reduces available research opportunities. Zara almost smiled at the clinical honesty. So you're helping me to protect your research interests? Affirmative, Korath replied. However, I have also observed that your psychological well-being has improved significantly since contact with the humans. This suggests their social model may have practical benefits for cybernetic individuals. An hour later, Zara and Korath found the human crew in their quarters, reviewing the latest round of bureaucratic obstacles that had been placed in their path. Elena was pulling apart a complex mechanical device while Tom calculated fuel costs and Sarah reviewed medical supply manifests. We're being squeezed out, Tom reported as they entered. At the current rate of fee increases and delays, we'll be forced to leave within the week or go bankrupt. It's worse than that, Zara said, sharing her data analysis through a portable display. This isn't random harassment. It's a coordinated effort to establish precedent for controlling human behavior. Marcus studied the pattern Zara had uncovered, his expression growing darker with each revelation. They're not just trying to make us abandon you. They're testing how much pressure it takes to make us compromise our values. Precisely, Korath added. If successful, similar pressure can be applied whenever human behavior deviates from acceptable parameters. Your species' independence will be effectively eliminated. Elena looked up from her mechanical work. So what do we do? Fight a conspiracy involving multiple galactic powers? Dr. Chen was studying Zara's medical data again. Actually, I think we have a better option. Zara, your cybernetic integration isn't just medically remarkable. It represents a new form of consciousness that transcends traditional species boundaries. Meaning? Marcus asked. Meaning she's proof that the galactic powers' rigid categories are obsolete, Sarah explained. They're not just afraid of cybernetic integration. They're afraid of what it represents, the possibility that all their careful species boundaries and social hierarchies might not be necessary. Zara's optical implant flickered as she processed this concept. You're suggesting I'm not an anomaly to be hidden, but evidence of evolutionary possibility. More than that, Marcus said, his strategic mind already working. You're proof that human approaches to technology and social integration work better than theirs. That's why they're really afraid. Tom grinned suddenly. So instead of hiding from the conspiracy, we expose it. Show everyone what they're really afraid of. Elena held up the device she had been working on, now reassembled and glowing with soft blue light. And I think I know how to do it. Zara, how would you feel about giving a presentation to the entire station?